Hi everyone, here is my Module 6 presentation on observations as a data collection technique. Observations are a set of qualitative data that involve carefully watching and recording what you see and hear going on in a particular or specific setting. Observations can be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. If an observation is structured, the main focus is that observation that's taking place. The researcher's looking for specific behaviors, interactions, and reactions. If it's structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, it allows for more flexibility for the researcher. It allows the researcher or the teacher to complete other activities during the observation, but also have times where it's focused just on that observation. And then unstructured is free-flowing. The researcher can observe when needed. Processes and procedures that are unique to this technique. There's 4 different ways that a researcher can participate in an observation. So the first one, non-participation. The researcher is not present during the observation. The researcher is watching or observing from afar from another site. Complete observer is where the researcher is present but not interacting, just listening and observing. They can also be eavesdropping, and they can gather data or collect data through videotaping, audio recording, or photographing. Observer as a participant. The participants know the objective the researcher has. The researcher can conduct interviews and ask questions. And then moderate or peripheral, the researcher interacts with the insiders and engages in similar activities. But according to Adler and Adler, he or she does not participate in those activities that stand at the core of group membership and identification. A few more processes and procedures that are unique to this technique is training and making sure that you're fully understanding how to conduct ethnographic research. Gaining access. How do you go about gathering access to the subjects in which you are going to study? It could take time depending on what type of research you're doing. So if we weren't teachers and we needed to research or study students, we would have to gain access into those buildings, getting our clearances and getting approved by the districts and things like that. So that could take time. Leaving the field. How will you leave after your research is completed? Will it be abrupt or gradual? Will there be an emotional attachment at the end? So going along with my first example, if you were observing students, would you just finish your research and leave, or would you gradually leave? And then if you were working with students or anyone, really, would there be an emotional attachment at the end that could cause a problem? The length of time in the field, depending on the research question or study, it could be longer or shorter. And then data collection uses field notes, logs, and also uses the 5 senses. Observations are considered to be qualitative. They're looking at interactions, reactions, specific behaviors, or actions. The best types of questions that this technique would answer would be where you're looking at student behavior, understanding of concepts through discussions, participation, student engagement, interactions or relationships, and then student focus as well. You could monitor how or observe how often a student is staying on task or not staying on task. The strengths of observation would be that it allows for actual student behavior data instead of biases or perceptions. It allows the teacher to observe things they might not have noticed through just interacting with the child. And with the different resources available for the educator to use during observations, they're able to see much more than what they normally would just teaching their classes. So if they were videotaping a lesson or using an audio recorder or even pictures, you would be able to see much more than what you would see if you were just standing up front or teaching a lesson. Some of the weaknesses with observation is that If students are aware of that observations are taking place, whether there's like a paper or pencil where people are jotting down notes, a video recorder or an audio recorder, it could change student behavior. Going along with that, if students are aware that they are being observed, their behavior could change and you would not get accurate findings or results. If teachers are working collaboratively, they might not they might interpret the data differently. It could be tedious and time consuming for a teacher or researcher. One of the quotes that I gathered from one of the articles that I found said, in addition, despite the level of involvement with the study group, the researcher must always remember her or his primary role as the researcher and remain detached enough to collect and analyze data relevant to the problem under investigation. So this would be difficult for a teacher or researcher. We would have to take kind of a step back and remember that during that time we are the researcher, and that could be difficult as well. Some concerns after learning a little bit more about observation. So ethical, if we're videotaping or photographing students, I know most districts already have a form that parents fill out, but if you wanted to use a specific student and that paper wasn't filled out or parents declined, that would take one of the resources away. Also for guilty knowledge, I don't think we would have much of this, but we could depending on the students that you're working with, just where confidential information is revealed throughout the research that someone would need to share. Validity, it could be researcher bias, the interpretation of the data, or if a researcher is just having selective recordings, that could be a concern. And then reliability, just if you're observing students, I would be just concerned about student emotions or events. I know a lot of students come to school with baggage, and if you are looking at behaviors or even engagement, I feel like other methods, they could easily track student like understanding and things like that, or other questions. But observation, if you're observing a student's behavior and they're dealing with an outside factor, the observation data could be skewed due to those outside factors affecting the student. If one day they are coming in and they're really hyper, or they're really acting out of character, and then the next day when you're observing them again, they are acting how they normally act and things like that. So that could be a challenge as well. So I hope you learned a little bit more about observation. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your presentation. Thanks.